I will start first by introducing this course to you. It's not, we know very well, and that's why each one of you is attending, let's say, or would like to do an MBA or to upgrade your knowledge, but not only. So you would like to acquire new knowledge, you would like to know new things, you would like to personally develop yourself to get. I would, because this has happened in the past as well. So in case, be careful with your mic. Try to, let's say, to mute it if you don't want to say anything, because sometimes I'm in the middle of the lecture and then it's simply activated, and that, let's say, disrupts the discussion or the lecturing itself. So make sure when you have to say something, I don't mind, you can interrupt me, but in case there is, I don't know, a noise in the background, anything that activates, then it does not disturb me personally, but the rest of the students as well. So as I was saying, we individually, no matter what kind of position we have, no matter where we are based momently, there is a need for personal development all the time. Let's say there are new developments in technology, new developments in other areas, and we will need to keep ourselves updated. That's why we need to personally develop from time to time. We might have a shift in positions within the organization that would require that we do additional training, additional knowledge upgrade as well. So here, what we're gonna talk mainly is in this course is about leadership, about personal leadership and management skills. Mainly, we'll discuss that in the context of the creation and achievement of organizational vision and strategic direction. So how this personal development can help you in the process of leadership and strategic management. So you're going to see throughout the lectures that we're going to have, we're going to talk about whether leaders are born or are made, and we're going to discuss that in line with some theories that are related actually to this particular, let's say, saying that we usually use. So what we will be, this course, what is actually meant is to understand how knowledge and skills in leadership and strategic management that you will acquire will help you to support the creation and achievement of the vision and strategy of your organization. So how you can use that knowledge and skills that you have within the field of leadership and management to support your organization in achieving the vision, the organizational vision, and the organizational strategy. Also, what the aim of this course is to understand how you as an individual can develop and communicate the vision of the organization. So we will be discussing about this as well. There will be the aim is to also you personally as individuals to be able to manage the development of your own personal knowledge and skills, mainly within the field of leadership and strategic management. And by acquiring this kind of knowledge to support yourself in the achievement of personal and organizational vision and strategy. So you as individual, you should be able to manage the development of your own personal knowledge. You yourself should do an auditing of your own knowledge and skills. So what you have, what you might need, what you need to do more, and how you are going about to, let's say, to acquire it or to, let's say, to achieve that. So attending new courses, let's say join an MBA program. We saw, for example, the case of Raymar, for example, has been in some other field. Now he's joining an MBA program. Most probably he's having like entrepreneurial ambitions, so he might need a new knowledge on how to lead an organization, how to manage an organization or a business, and that's how we go about to let's say to acquire new knowledge and to develop our own personal knowledge and skills. But that's not the only way. There are other ways that you can do that. There are different kinds of internships that you can attend, different, let's say, executive courses as well. So you have different other options. So it's you yourself that will need to let's say to do that particular auditing of your own skills and knowledge, what you know, what you need for that particular position, and then how you're going to go about to acquire that new knowledge and skills in order to develop yourself, so you can help not only yourself but also the organization to support the achievement of their vision as well as their strategy. And last thing, what you can benefit from this course is to be able to appreciate in a way, or to reflect on the benefits of your own personal development in the achievement of your own personal growth, as well as in the achievement of the organizational vision and strategy. So how you can assess the benefits of reviewing your own personal development, and how you can explain when this tool can be used in the achievement of your own personal as well as the organizational strategy. So this is mainly what the aim of this course is. And today we're gonna have like three main topics that we're gonna discuss. We will start by the first one, where we're gonna define leadership, and we're gonna talk about the significance of leadership. Then we will talk about the global and cultural context of leadership. And today we're gonna conclude with a third topic, where we're gonna talk about some of the modern leadership theories. So we're gonna talk about the foundations of modern leadership. So in this course, we'll try as much as possible to have let's say some case studies, class discussions in particular. Usually we'll start the lectures by a particular question that we're going to pose, and then simply you will need to interact. Then we're going to have the lecture, and at the end we're usually going to end with a case study that you will need to discuss actually together among you. So without taking, let's say, further time, we can start with our first lecture for today. I apologize, because the file that I had is not working, so I will need to download it once again. So Okay, so just a second to share the screen. So I'm sure all of you can now see the slides. So as I said, today we're gonna start first by defining leadership and by discussing what is the significance of leadership. So this is going to be the main, let's say, the main objective of this particular lecture. We're going to also discuss some of the major obstacles to effective leadership. So leaders can be effective, can be in certain cases they are not effective as well. We know leaders that have failed, leaders that have been successful as well. We're going to also try to compare and contrast what leadership and what management is. Definitely there is a difference between the two, so we're going to discuss that. We're going to list the roles and functions of leaders and managers. So what is mainly that makes them different, what managers do, what leaders do within the organization. We're going to talk also about changes within the organization and how these changes do affect the leaders of this organization. And we're going to end up this session of today's lecture with a debate over the role and impact of leadership within the organization. That's why I would like to start this particular lecture by first discussing these questions. So we have leaders that are focused on getting things done. However, we have leaders that do take care of their followers first, of the relationship that they have with their subordinates in this case, or their employees. So we talk mainly about two kinds of leaders in this case. So someone, he doesn't care of the relationship that he builds with his, let's say, subordinates or his employees. Simply, he wants that the task is done in these cases. However, we have the other kind of leaders that mainly puts in front the relationship that he builds with his followers. Also, we have leaders that look at the big pictures and other leaders that do focus on the details of the job. So, in your opinion, is one approach better than the other, and which one you personally or individually do you prefer? So this is the question that we're going to pose usually at the beginning of each lecture, and throughout the lecture, it's something that we're gonna try to explain actually all these questions. But I would like to hear your opinion, mainly based on your previous experience. I'm sure you have been working, many of you, so you might have had different experiences with different kinds of leaders within your organization. So what it is that you prefer in these cases, and why do you think that this approach is better than the other one? So any of you can simply start and discuss it.
Hi, Professor, if I may.
Yes.
Before I used to prefer a leader that would get the job done. I would think I would still prefer that. But during the last 2 years, during the pandemic, it seems that a leader that would put taking care of their followers first seems to stand out during the last 2 years, primarily because of the circumstance.
So based on what you are saying, it's simply that it's based on the context or the situation that we are.
Yes, Professor.
That we have to change the approach in this case. So you think that the followers, let's say in this case, or employees, needed much more support from the leaders during this time of pandemic compared to the past?
I think so, Professor. In my own company, I felt it during the last year that they are more appreciative after you have shown them that you were willing to take care of them during the pandemic.
Okay, because you are not from the beginning, we kind of introduced each other. So I don't know in which field are you working and what you are actually doing, that would make it much more relevant, actually, this discussion, if you could tell us, like,
Sorry, Professor. I have a law firm. I
okay,
provide legal services. I'm currently the managing partner of our law firm in the Philippines.
okay, yeah, thanks a lot then. Next one, anything you would like to add? So thank you, Jan.
Professor,
Yeah.
can I just add to Attorney Aliling's point? Personally, I'm the type who'd look at the bigger picture. That's always been my practice. For the past years of leading our organization. But to Attorney Aliling's point, during these trying times, one way of approaching it also is for me to focus on the people, simply because I feel that whatever the people feel will affect the bigger picture moving forward. So if I take care of the people, they'll be more appreciative and moving forward. And when I say moving forward, it's just medium term, because I still don't know what's going to happen next. They learn to appreciate, they learn to value the company, thus giving a better effect moving forward and having a more positive result. So basically, I'm always there. I always look at the bigger picture, output driven.
Okay, thanks a lot. Anyone else? Okay, so we have two, let's say two important insights that came from two students that actually do see this from different perspectives, mainly based on their experience and based on how they see things. However, all this we're gonna discuss throughout this session. We're gonna see how important is, in fact, this relationship that you are building with your followers or your employees. You're gonna see how important it is to have all your employees on board if you would like to accomplish the vision of your organization, as well as the strategic objectives that you have as an individual or a leader. So you cannot be a leader without having your followers. That's what makes a leader. A leader without followers, it's let's say it's not possible. And we're going to discuss that in detail. And usually when we talk about leaders, who is the leaders, when are the leaders effective? So these are, let's say, some of the main questions that we usually ask when we start talking about leaders. So we can easily recognize bad leadership. Usually these kind of bad leaders are dishonest, they are self-centered, they care about themselves mainly, they are arrogant, disorganized, they do not communicate with their employees. However, on the other side, like being honest compared to dishonest, being selfless, organized, communicative, these are necessary. However, you cannot say that those two make a good leader. And this is what we're going to mainly talk in this particular lecture about leadership, as well as the many aspects and roles and functions of of leadership in these cases. However, we will start first by providing a definition of leadership. If you go and check your dictionary and you simply put, let's say you would like to define what leading means, you're going to find a definition that says like guiding or directing on a course, or serving as a channel. However, usually in terms of the organization, a leader is any person in these cases, who influences individuals and groups within the organization. But he does not only do that, he helps them to establish goals and guides them toward the achievement of those goals. Thereby, he allows them to be effective. So it's the leader that does not only establish the goals, however, he needs to guide, he needs to motivate those employees to achieve those goals. That's why allowing to be effective. And that's where the question of building relationship is important, because getting things done, being dictatorial in your leading, that might have short-term effect. However, on a long-term basis, that doesn't seem to be effective. That's something that actually Florence discussed. So if you would like something on a long-term basis, that's where you will need to establish these kind of relationship with your followers, if you would like to have them on board to achieve your goals and strategic planning for your organization. That's why it's important. And this definition, by looking at this definition, it actually brings us to 4 key elements of leadership. And the first element of leadership is, in fact, that this leadership is a group and social phenomenon. So as I said earlier, there cannot be leaders without followers. So leadership is mainly about others. You cannot be a leader if you do not have your followers. The second element of leadership is the fact that it involves interpersonal influence. And that's why, as we said earlier, there needs to be a relationship. Without this relationship, you cannot influence, let's say, each other. So that's where persuasion is needed, because, as we said, leaders do move others towards goals and action. So you will need to persuade them that it's worth their energy, it's worth their effort in order to achieve those goals and action. So if they do not see a stake in it, they will not be motivated in striving together with you to achieve those goals and objectives for the organization. And the third key element of leadership is the fact that, as we saw in that definition that we had earlier, it's goal and action oriented. First, you define the goals, and then you will need to work hand in hand with your followers to achieve those goals. So it does not all, the role of leaders is not to only establish those goals. However, the leaders will need to guide, will need to motivate, will need to put into action their followers and themselves in order to achieve those particular goals. So only establishing the goals is half job done. Then comes the action plan on how you're going to achieve those particular goals. And that's where the leaders do play an active role in groups and organizations, because they use influence in order to guide other through certain action plan, through certain courses of action in order to achieve certain goals that they have defined, not only for themselves, also for the organization. And the fourth element of leadership is the fact that it actually assumes some form of hierarchy within the group or the organization. So it depends from organizations to organization. In certain cases, it can be formal and well-defined. In certain cases, it might be informal and it can be more flexible. We're going to talk about these two kinds of, let's say, hierarchy within the organizations in some of our sessions later during the course. So when it is formal and well-defined organizational structure, we usually have the leader at the top, and in certain cases it's more informal and flexible with no clear-cut definition. So these are the four key elements that we could define from the earliest earlier definition of leadership that says the leader is any person who influences individuals and groups within the organization. He helps them to establish goals, and then he guides them towards achievement of those goals, where he allows them to be more effective. So this tells us that being a leader is mainly about how to get things done for, through, and with other people. So, however, what we need to see when we look and read this particular definition is that it does not include a formal title, or it does not define leadership in terms of certain traits or personal characteristics. Let's say leader is someone that is like this, like that, or something like that. This is not necessary for leadership. We're going to talk later on when we're going to talk about the traits theory. We're going to see that they have done extensive research, and they have not been able to find, let's say, particular traits that they can say, okay, these traits do make an excellent or effective leader. That's why you cannot find a single definition of leadership that does include a formal title or does define a relationship in terms of particular traits or personal characteristics in these cases. So this brings us to the differences between effective leaders and successful leaders. So what makes a leader effective and what makes a leader successful? And this is what we mainly discussed earlier. So some of them do focus on getting things done, and some leaders do focus on the relationship between let's say between themselves, as well as the relationship between them and their subordinates or their followers. So this brings us to the question: what does it mean to be an effective leaders? It depends. There have been particular theories that have been developed with regards to this. We're going to talk at the end of this session for today, where we're going to talk about some of the modern contemporary theories of leadership. For example, Fred Friedler contingency model. According to him, leadership effectiveness he defines in terms of group performance. So according to him, leaders are effective when the group performs well. We have the path goal theory that considers the satisfaction of the followers, the satisfaction of subordinates, as a primary factor to determine whether leadership is effective or not. So you can recognize whether a leader is effective when you see that the followers of this leader are, in these cases, satisfied. So it depends, let's say, from perspective to perspective. So they do see, let's say, leadership differently. So it's not that all these scholars, researchers have, let's say, agreed on a particular, let's say, on a particular idea on what makes a successful leader in this or effective leader in these cases. That's why this is how we are seeing, let's say, effectiveness of leadership. When we talk about the difference between being effective and being successful, there is no best way, or how you can, in a way, how you can define what it means to be an effective leader. And there have been scholars, in particular, it has been Fred Luthans, who has proposed an interesting twist on the concept of leadership effectiveness. And what he tried to do is try to distinguish between effective and successful managers. According to him, effective managers are those with satisfied and productive employees, whereas on the other side, successful managers are those who are promoted quickly in these cases. However, how they do this, let's say this quick promotion, is mainly because they focus on politicking and networking within the organization. I'm absolutely sure you have met this kind of people that usually do climb their career ladder quite fast, especially if you focus a lot on politicking and networking within the organization. That's what, in certain cases, we are surprised how fast these people can move within the organization. So that's what's the first difference between effective leaders and successful leaders in these cases. So on the other side, after an extensive research, Lufthansa also suggests that successful managers and effective managers do engage in different types of activities as well. So effective managers usually do spend their time to communicate with their subordinates, to manage conflicts in case there are conflicts within the organization. They also get involved in training, developing, and motivating their employees. On the other side, when we talk about these successful managers, their primary focus is not on the employees. So what they mainly focus is mainly on networking activities such as interacting with outsiders, socializing, as well as politicking within the organization. In certain cases, this can be a quick way how they can be successful and climb their career ladder within the organization. On the other side, there are the internal and external activities that usually effective and successful managers do take or do perform that are extremely important to allow these leaders to achieve their goals. However, according to this research that done by this scholar, only 10% of the managers in his study are effective and successful in these cases. Another difference that makes different effective leaders compared to successful leaders is that usually effective leaders are satisfied and they have satisfied and productive employees, and they take care of their employees and followers, compared to these successful managers that usually mainly put focus on their network with the outsiders, and they take care of their supervisor, because it's him that's going to promote them later on. That's why these people are usually promoted quickly. I'm sure, let's say, in your career, in your past experience, you have met these two kinds of leaders within your organization, or you have had to work with these two kinds of leaders within the organization. And I'm sure you can perfectly tell, if you have had these two kinds of experiences, which one you would prefer as a subordinate or as a follower in these cases, no matter what organization that you got, what organization you are working for. So when we talk about effectiveness of leadership, it's important to also try to define some of the key elements of effectiveness. So one way how we can take a much broader view of effectiveness is to consider leaders effective when their group is successful in the process of maintaining their internal stability as well as their external adaptability while achieving the goals that they have set as a group. And based on this, we can identify three main elements of effectiveness. And the first one is goal achievement. So you should be able to meet your financial goals, producing quality products or services and addressing the needs that your customers have in these cases. The second element of effectiveness is smooth internal process. So there should be group cohesion, followers should be satisfied, and the operations that are involved in the task that you do as a group should be efficient in this case. And the third one is the external adaptability. And this mainly refers to the ability of the group to change and evolve successfully in this case. So by taking into consideration all these three elements, we can say that leaders are effective when their followers achieve their goals, can function well together, and can adapt to changing demands from external force. So this actually includes all these three elements of effectiveness. So followers achieve the goals, which shows that they are being efficient. There is group cohesion, follower satisfaction, or efficient operations, which is a sign that this group can function well together. And on the other side, the group can adapt to changing demands from the external forces, which mainly refers to the ability of these groups to change and evolve successfully in line with the changes that do happen in the external environment. And this brings us to the question that we had in the beginning of this of the lecture. So no matter whether you are focusing on the task, on people, on the big picture, or whether you hone the details and so forth, all these can be part of the leadership. And as we had mainly in the discussion with Jan in the beginning, is that it depends on the leaders, it depends on the followers, as well as on the situation. So the context is extremely important. So what kind of approach you're going to choose? It should be based on you as a leader. It should be based on the followers that you have, as well as the situation that you are mainly going to apply all that. Because there might be some things that generally don't work. Let's say, as an example, we can say that using fear and threats in all situations, it's not something that that might work. It can work in let's say in other contexts, but might not work in another context. That's why we have so many different styles and approaches to leading that can be effective. And what's important, as we said here, is understanding the situation is the key. And that's when you're gonna be able that based on the on situation to choose the appropriate leadership style in leading your followers. So by being able to match leader, followers, and the situation, and choosing the appropriate styles from the different styles and approaches to leading, this is what can make leaders effective in this case. And this actually brings us to the question of why do we need leaders? So this is a phenomenon that we find across different cultures. Why we need to have a leader? What kinds of needs does the fact of having a leader fulfills for us? Is it necessary to have a leader in most of the cases? However, we can see that leaders are extremely important. You see, for example, when an organization is having problems, they are not being successful, their bottom line does not show any positive signs in this case. The first thing that they do, they change the CEO of the organization. In certain cases, we have seen that with changes of the CEO, things have been, let's say, have turned for better for this organization. So this shows that leaders are important, and these are some of the main reasons why do we need leaders. So we need them to keep groups orderly and focused. If we look throughout the history, we as human beings, we have formed different groups, different societies, and in all these kinds of formation that have happened, there have usually been leaders that have had these that have led these organizations. That's why we need an individual, we need leaders in order to keep these groups orderly and focused, as we said in the definition that we had earlier. So leaders are there to define the goals, but not only. They will need to guide, they will need to motivate, and they will need to have an action plan in place on how to achieve those goals, and then have the employees on board, or followers to say on board, to achieve those goals. The next important, let's say, reason why do we need leaders besides keep groups orderly and keep groups focused on the goals, is to help them to accomplish in particular complex tasks. So usually the groups that we belong to, they allow us to accomplish tasks that individuals alone would not be able to undertake or complete. That's why when we talk about these complex tasks that cannot be done by individuals, but we'll need groups to accomplish those tasks, that's where we need leaders in order to facilitate the particular accomplishment of those complex tasks. And the leaders should be there to, in a way, provide goals as well as directions, and then to coordinate all these activities in order to accomplish those complex tasks. Also, leaders should be there in order to help us to make sense of the world by providing validation in these cases. So groups and their leaders to provide individuals with the so-called perceptual check, because leaders help us to make sense of the world. They help us to establish social reality, and they help us in the process of assigning meaning to events and situations that in certain cases may be ambiguous for us or we cannot understand. So that's why we need leaders. And the last reason why we need leaders is that leaders are considered to be a romantic idea. So there have been particular researchers that have suggested that leadership is mainly needed to fulfill our desire for, let's say, having a romantic figure or mythical figure ahead of us, who is there to represent us and to symbolize our own and our own cultures, ideals, and accomplishments in these cases. And this brings us to the question or the significance of the leaders. So why do leaders matter? Let's say for different groups, for different organizations, or different societies. So despite this common belief that leaders matter, there has been considerable debate among, in particular, scholars, whether leadership actually affects the organization or not. Because there have been particular researchers that do suggest that environmental, social, industrial, or economic conditions are the ones that determine organizational direction and performance to a much higher degree than does the leadership of the organization. So external factors in particular, together with certain organizational elements like the structure of the organization, the strategy of the organization, and this is what is set or is assumed to limit the decision-making options that the leaders have within the organization. And this actually reduces the discretion of these particular leaders within the organizations. However, there have been other researchers that do suggest that leadership does indeed have an impact within the organization. And that shows that actually leadership is important for the organization. So leadership is one of the many factors that does affect the performance of the organization. It's not that it's not important. And research also shows that leadership can indirectly impact other performance factors within the organization. For example, employee satisfaction, employee motivation, employee engagement, let's say employee turnover within the organization. Also, leadership is essential in providing vision and direction within the organization. We have, as I mentioned earlier, we have seen that with the changes that have happened in the leadership of the organization, or maybe leadership of particular countries, we have seen that the vision and direction of those particular organization or those countries have changed. We have had revolutionary leaders that have changed their countries in a short period of time. That shows that leaders are essentially providing not only vision but also direction for their followers or groups, their countries, in order to achieve those established goals. However, as we said earlier, situation is something that is crucial and is important. That's why identifying the situation in which leadership matters is essential. Another important aspect that we need to be careful, and this is something that we discussed earlier, is the combination of leaders with followers and other organizational factors. So if you would be able to combine, let's say, your leadership style, how you lead the organization, with the kinds of followers that you have, as well as other organizational factors, the situation in which actually the context in which you're going to apply your leadership style, that's what's gonna make you an effective leader, as we said earlier. And the last thing is, research actually does indicate that leadership has a positive impact on the variety of organizational effectiveness factors, like climate within the organization, the work group for performance in both not only business organizations, but also when we talk about public organizations as well. That's why if we would like to reconcile the different arguments with regards to the need for and the impact of the leadership, that's where we will need to be able to recognize that a leadership within the organization is one of the many factors that does influence the performance of a group or the organization. That's why the leader's contribution is significant in providing a vision, as we said earlier, and direction for followers, as well as helps them to integrate their all activities to achieve those goals that they have identified. And as I said earlier, the key is to identify situations in which the power of these leaders, as well as the discretion of the group and the organization, are limited. We're going to discuss them in detail later on when we're going to talk about some of the modern or contemporary theories of leadership. However, being an effective leader definitely cannot be without a particular obstacle. So in our way, or in our ambitions, or in our striving to be effective leaders, we will definitely face these kinds of obstacles that can hinder us from being effective. And the first one is the environmental uncertainty, especially nowadays. I don't think any leader was able to predict that we're going to face this kind of pandemic in the beginning of 2020, for example. And this is what caught many of the organizations unprepared. Also, they did not think that let's say this is gonna last that long, so that they could prepare, let's say, for this on a long-term basis. So if you go and check any organization, for example, their strategic planning, for example, that they might have done in 2020, I don't think any of them had predicted that this is going to happen. So these external uncertainties, environmental uncertainties, are a huge obstacle for these leaders, because they do create pressure for quick responses and solutions. So those that were able to quickly react, to find quick solutions to the current situations, at the end we could see that they managed to even leverage the potential of this pandemic in order to turn that into, let's say, positive numbers for their organizations. So these external forces, they demand immediate attention. So that's where the let's say the ability of these leaders to quickly respond to these pressures that are created by these external uncertainties that they face, mainly from the environment, and finding a solution immediately that can act as an obstacle to their effectiveness, however, on the other side, can help them to become more effective. The second one is the rigidity of these organizations. In certain cases, or in organizations are often rigid and unforgiving. So usually when they try to push hard for short-term and immediate performance, they do not usually allow any room for mistakes or experimentation. However, we have particular organizations that are well known for this, for being, let's say, for being more flexible, that do allow the room for mistakes and experimentation. For example, we have the Virgin Group, we have 3M, Apple. They do encourage, let's say, their employees to take risks, to make mistakes, because it's only through this kind of flexibility and experimentation that you allow that they can improve. So the moment that you do not allow them to take, let's say, action to do things, despite the mistake or the failure that can happen, they will never try to do something. So this rigidity and reward system of many institutions, they do discourage this kind of endeavor. So if it is not appreciated, employees will never try to do anything. The third thing is something that happens to many organizations. They do fall back on old ideas about what effective leadership is, and they mainly they mainly rely on kind of simplistic solutions that might not fit their new and complex problems that they have. So if you have a new complex problems, you cannot find a solution by falling back on the old ideas about what effective leadership, or mainly to rely on finding, let's say, simplistic solutions to solve those problems. So the use of these simple ideas doesn't mainly provide only temporary solutions in these cases. The fourth obstacle to effective leadership is mainly the organizational culture. So throughout the years of their operations, the organizations do develop a particular culture that does strongly influence how things are done within that organization and what is considered to be acceptable behavior. That's why change management is not, let's say, an easy process within the organization. And if you know the process of change management is first you will need to unfreeze a particular, let's say, a particular culture within the organization, or behavior, or how things are done within the organization, and then you will need to convince your employees so why this new thing that you would like to introduce, this change, is important, and why they need that. You will need to convince, otherwise people are always afraid of change, because it brings uncertainty to the employees. So organizational culture can be an important obstacle to effective leaders. So as they try to implement these new ideas, experiments with new methods, they can face resistance, which usually is generated by the current established culture within the organization. That's why this conviction, this persuasion from those change leaders within the organization is extremely important to convince, to persuade these followers that these new ideas, this new way of doing things is better to what has already been established as a culture within the organization. And the last obstacle to effective leadership is the inaccessible research. This is mainly related to the difficulty which is involved in understanding and applying the findings of academic research. So academic research in most of the cases actually does not clarify the application of their research, and this is what makes it inaccessible to practitioners. So what the academics find in practice, it actually lacks applicability in these cases. And as we said earlier, what's important is to also understand the difference between leader and the manager. Although in certain cases we do use them interchangeably. So in most of the cases we use them to mean the same. We can see that there is a particular distinction between the two. And what Kevin Kurz is one of the best-selling authors and entrepreneurs. He believes that organizations need good management in order to plan, to measure, to hire, to fire, as well as to coordinate activities. However, based on him, leadership is mainly about people. And it's in this table that you can see here on the difference between managers and leaders, that he has been able to present some of the major distinctions between managers and leaders. So whereas leaders in these cases do have long-term and future-oriented perspectives and provide vision for the followers, as we said earlier, in order to look beyond their immediate surroundings. Usually the managers do take short-term perspectives, and they mainly focus on routine issues within their own immediate departments or groups. Also, managers usually they strive to maintain the status quo within the organization, whereas the leaders are the ones that do create change. So they do initiate new policies within the organization, whereas the managers are there to implement these new policies that are initiated by these leaders. Managers are there to maintain existing culture and structure, whereas the leaders are the ones that initiate and create new cultures and structures within the organization. Managers do remain aloof and objective, whereas the leaders are the ones that do establish emotional bonds with their power. Usually managers do use their position power that they have within the organization. For example, if he's let's say a marketing let's say manager, or he has the marketing department, the position, the power that he gets from having that particular position, he will use that position power to influence or deal with his subordinates within that particular department. On the other side, leaders mainly use their personal power in order to not only influence but also guide and motivate their followers or subordinates to help them to achieve the already defined or established goals that they have. That's why we say that managers mainly focus on the present, on accomplishing particular tasks, whereas leaders do think on a long-term basis, and they focus mainly on the future. And this brings us to some of the main roles and functions of leaders. So it depends from organization to organization. So leaders usually do perform different functions. They play some unique roles. However, what researchers have identified is some managerial roles and functions that we can find across most of the settings. And these are the so-called managerial roles that were proposed by Mintzberg. I'm sure you have learned of them in different courses. And these are the 10 executive roles that Mintzberg has identified. Those are the figurehead, leader, liaison role, monitor, disseminator, spokesperson, entrepreneur, disturbance handler, resource allocator, as well as the negotiator role of these leaders. So I'm not gonna discuss them in details. I'm sure many of you know these roles. We're gonna talk later on also about them throughout the course. For more information, you can go and check about all these roles. Especially something that has turned into a great debate worldwide is the difference between male and female managers in performing their role, and whether there is a different approach or any difference in how they handle the job. I would suggest, in case you have time, to read an interesting book. It's by Sally Helgesen, The Female Advantage, Women's Way of Leadership. It's an interesting book that I have personally read, especially if this is something that interests you. So it's through case studies of 5 female executives that this author replicated the methodology that she has used for 20 years, that was used for 20 years earlier by Mintzberg in his study that he did of 7 male managers. So she did the opposite. So the gender difference found between these two, let's say, studies can be attributed mainly to this 20 year of time difference, especially now, let's say from 1970s to now, we see lots of changes in terms of male and female leadership. So we have much more females actually in leadership roles compared to 20 years earlier, for example, and not only. Also, in terms of, though there are still let's say differences, there are still stagnations with regards to also to payment, for example. However, certain cultures now have, let's say, have tried not only, but have also achieved this kind of, let's say, this kind of justice in, let's say, providing or giving the same pay rate to both male and female, because we know there has been discrimination also, not only in terms of leadership position in organizations, but also in terms of payment as well. And this is what actually have mainly strived. It depends, these achievements we might not find, let's say, the same from country to country. For example, let's say I can see this difference between Switzerland, for example, and my home country where I'm born, North Macedonia. So the difference is huge actually with regards to leadership positions that male and female occupy in these two different countries. However, progress has been made for all these years. So these are some of the main gender differences in terms of the roles of the leadership roles that they do at work. So male managers are usually known for having the unrelenting pace of work. They do a wide variety of tasks. They usually also face frequent interruptions in the work that they do, little time to communicate. They do only few non-work activities. Isolation is also another characteristic of male managers. Their identity is also tied to work, complex network, and they prefer face-to-face interaction. The complex network and face-to-face interaction is something that female managers do also prefer, but however, there are particular differences that female managers do have. In the particular, they have a calm, steady pace of work compared to unrelenting pace of work that characterizes male managers. Female managers, they do prefer frequent breaks, and they did not in these cases perceive any interruptions compared to the frequent interruptions from male managers. They usually, female managers compared to male managers, they do schedule time for communication, and they do perform many non-work activities. And this is something that maybe makes them more connected to others compared to the isolation that actually characterizes the male managers in these cases. Here, what's important is to understand, and that's something that we can see in this particular picture here, is the role of the leaders within the organizations on how they shape the culture of the organization. And this is something that you might have seen, you can see, let's say, from taking different cases that we have seen with changes that have happened to the leadership position with the organization, and how the organizational culture has changed. Also, this is something that we can understand from the leaders that have established those organizations. We mentioned earlier, for example, the Virgin Group, Apple, for example, which is, let's say, the culture of this organization is very much, let's say, a projection of their leader that established the organization in these cases. So this figure shows how leaders are role models for other organizational members, and how these leaders do help actually establish a particular organizational culture within their organization. So, for example, if the founder of this organization is someone who is workaholic, control-oriented, in these cases, we might have an organization that is more likely to push for fast-paced decision-making and can be more centralized. On the other side, if we have, let's say, a person or a founder who is, let's say, a more participative person, he's more team-oriented. In these cases, we will have an organization that will be more decentralized and more open in these cases. So a leader, first of all, they affect the vision and mission, or they establish the vision and mission of the organization. They are role models for other organizational members of the organization. They affect the reward system with the organization, hiring decisions, as well as the strategy and structure of the organization, that all together help to establish an organizational culture that is actually projects the leaders of the organizations. Also, research in particular on the importance of empathy in leadership suggests another function of leadership or leaders in this case, which is mainly related to cultural factors. And what research actually shows is that key functions of leaders is to manage the emotions of the group members that they are leading in this case. So even though attention to internal processes issues like the emotional state of the followers has always been considered a factor in leadership. However, in most of the cases, it has been considered as a peripheral task in this case. So has not been considered as one of the main functions. However, this is an extremely important function and critical to maintaining the positive outlook of your followers, in particular in uncertain and ambiguous situation. This is something that it was discussed by one of your colleagues in the beginning, where he saw that now we need leaders that take, especially after the pandemic, he thought that leaders should be more, let's say, towards not only accomplishing the task, but to try to build this kind of relationship with their employers. That's something that makes sense in this case, because leaders should try to maintain the positive outlook of the followers, especially when they face this kind of uncertain and ambiguous situations, because those followers will definitely observe the emotional reactions of the leaders, and then they will take their cue from them in order to determine the appropriate reactions that they are going to take in these cases. And this is, if we see the figure that we have in this slide is actually the new rules for a leader. So usually the organizations need, let's say, an ongoing or constant need for innovation, especially nowadays when we have global competition, economic pressures. We have also changes in demographics. We have seen that organizations do change drastically. That's why many of the, let's say, traditional leadership functions and roles are changing as well. And that's why in this figure that you see here, we have the traditional control-oriented model and the new result-oriented model for leaders in the organizations. It's mainly because of the changing environment for organization that has forced not only the organization, but researchers to reconsider the expectations and requirements for leadership. So if we take this this particular example that we have here, employees mainly in traditional organizations, they are only responsible, let's say, for production, the planning, leading, and controlling functions, as well as the responsibility for results or the responsibility of the manager. So what they were supposed to do is mainly these two functions that they have here. So if you see nowadays the new organizations, which are mainly result oriented, so this is something that we find in a number of organizations. They are shifting the activities and responsibilities that are typically associated with the managers to employees. So managers nowadays are expected to provide the vision, to get the needed resources to the employees and act as support people. And then they get out of the employee's way. So it's now the employee that will need to assume the responsibility in other tasks. So if you can see here in this slide, here the followers only assumed responsibility only here. So when they had to do the actual task. However, followers here, as you can see, do assume responsibility in all the other tasks that in the traditional way, it was only the manager that had to take responsibility or to take care. So managers in these cases are there to only lead. So they provide the vision, they give them the needed resources that the employees need. Of course, they have to be there to act as support person when help is needed, and then they get out of the way. So it's the employees here that will need to learn about the strategic and financial issues that are related to their job. They have to plan their own activities. They have to set production goals, and then they are there to take responsibility for their results. So the same job compared to the past now has more responsibilities by the followers compared to the past, that they assumed responsibility only when they had to do in the doing stage of the process. Whereas here they assume responsibility also in the planning stage when they do things, also for the results, as well as the control stage in the process as well. One particular thing, especially when we talk about changes in organizations, as well as the leadership changes within the organization. Usually there are a number of, let's say, external and internal factors that do lead these organizations to change, as well as that have led to changes in the role of the leaders and managers within the organization. And something that we face nowadays, and we have in a way witnessed for the let's say for the last few years, it's mainly the worldwide political changes. These especially these societies are changing. So we have more open societies. Democracy has been established in so many of these countries that previously did have different political systems. So these political changes do shape and are shaped by images of what is considered to be appropriate leadership. We know, for example, with the fall of the Soviet Union, we have many of these countries in that particular area, like Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, that turn into democracies, and actually they change everything on how things are done within this society. We saw what happened, for example, in North Africa and Egypt during the Middle East, for example, during the Arab Spring, and how these actually affected this society. Another important factor that does fuel change in not only in leadership but also within the organization are the worldwide economic downturn. We know what happened, for example, during the 2008, during the financial crisis. So also globalization and local competition, as well as the complex and fast-changing technologies, they have, let's say, force the organizations to change. The pandemic, who ever thought that we will all be working from home? Organizations were not even considering that. However, they were forced to consider. So these external factors did, in a way, force the organizations to change on how they do things. And now we need on a daily basis how the organizations now are adopting a hybrid approach to, let's say, to working from home as well as in the office, as an effective way to achieve not only employee satisfaction but organizational effectiveness as well in this case. And the last, let's say, factor that fuels change not only in organizations and leadership are the demographic changes. And these demographic changes is something that we have faced in many of the societies worldwide. Switzerland, for example, is more diverse than it used to be like 20, 30 years ago. I think these demographic changes you face, let's say, in your countries as well. That's why the organizations will need to adjust and will need to adapt to these changes that do happen within their society in terms of demography. So these are some, let's say, numbers with regards to the United States and the diversity in the US population. However, this diversity you can see within your own countries. For example, we have people, as we saw earlier, for example, Catherine, she works in the UAE, for example. So compared to the diversity that you see now in UAE compared to let's say 20, 30 years ago, it's a different thing. So this diversity that the organizations face in terms of demographics, that will need to reflect, let's say, their own internal organizational policies and leadership as well. Because in the workplace in the past, you would have, for example, in your own countries, only people that come from the same ethnic religious background. However, for example, in UAE, you deal with people that come from different cultural and ethnic background, but not only. People from different religious background, from different affiliations, for example. And this diversity you will need to incorporate not only within your leadership style and approach, but also within the culture that the organization adopts in these particular cases. So these are mainly some, let's say, some numbers in terms of changes that have happened to the United States in terms of demographics. I would conclude for today with regards to some barriers to change that the organizations that usually face. So we discussed some of the, let's say, particular factors that do fuel change within the organization. However, the organizations do also face particular changes when it comes, particular barriers when it comes to change within the organization. So perceived financial pressures, short-term orientation can be barriers to change for many of the organizations. However, we have also top management, which is still focused on one person. That can be an obstacle to change, because that particular person might not perceive that it's time to change. So it's hard to convince these people that there is a need for change. Traditional organizations are like that. In particular, organizations that do not appreciate or do not consider the feedback that comes from down or from the employees. So this can act as a barrier to change, because in certain cases, those that are, let's say, in the lowest part of the hierarchy, in certain cases, they can better perceive, let's say, particular needs for change. So if we do not get their opinion, their input and creativity, so this can act as a barrier to change. The focus on individual rather than group performance can also be a barrier to change, together with the traditional management styles within the organization. So this is all with regards to this lecture. In case there are questions that you would like to ask, feel free. If not, I suggest that we take a short break, and then we will get back with a short, let's say, question on what would you do in these cases, and then we're going to have a case study, and then we're going to continue with the rest of the lecture. But because it took a little longer, I would suggest that first we have a short break, and then we come back. So let's just discuss this situation. You have started a new job, and based on the interview and discussion with the people before you decide to accept that particular job, those people during that interview convinced you to believe that the company strongly believes in employee participation, engagement, and flexibility. And after a couple of months of working with your new boss, however, all you see is command and control, with later opportunity for you to provide any input in this case. So what would you as an employee actually do in these cases? Any idea?
Hi.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, I'm Catherine. Sorry, at the beginning I couldn't use the microphone, so I had the problem, so I didn't like
Okay,
introduce
okay,
myself.
okay. Yep.
Yeah, actually, this one also happened to me before when I changed to the job like
Okay.
last time. Yeah, and of course, when we started talking in during the interview, it was something else. And then when I started, so I just what would I do or what I actually did is just like I went to talk to my boss or the interviewer since then like since the first month because I can notice already that like it's something wrong and it was not like right what I try to get to the new company or something like that. And of course my boss also said like because he also just joined the company as well not so long, and then she said like yeah at first he also got the information like this as well, and but the case is like the company was about to um develop to something else. That's why they try to hire new people and they're going to change. So I feel like, of course, the first, how to say, the first thing that I want to do is just like I have to discuss with the former, how to say, or the interviewer, that what is going on, why it's not the same like the direction that like I had during the interview. And of course, like my case, it was like, yeah, they'll try to hire the new people more, and then they try to change the company culture.
And are you still with the same company?
Yes, exactly. And I know that like they have been trying to change for sure, but of course the cross culture or the age of the people, like you mentioned in the class that many people they are afraid of changing. They don't want to change. When we start to change something, many people try to say, hey, not possible because we still doing this so long time and it's gonna affect so many departments. So it's like okay it takes time, but of course I try to talk with my boss and my how to say other new colleagues, and of course we try to think like okay we try to set the limit. If we try to change let's say like in 3 years or in 5 years and it's not going to change or anything, then of course then we have to find something else for our career path. But of course we don't want to give up yet because like now let's say like we know the direction of the company they would like to change, but the barrier or everything is about the culture or the people in the company. So I really feel like yeah then it's like a fight between the old generation or the new generation that like we would like to change, and that if it's how to say it's not possible from our side, then of course then we know that like it's too, I don't know, this is from my opinion, but of course at the moment we try to figure out together and then we try to make a plan and then we would like to present to the board member or something like that to change something.
Yeah, I mean, like in certain cases, it's not that they lack a desire in these cases, because let's say if you did not go and talk to them and simply leave the organization, you would not have discovered actually that they are ready for change in these cases. But they also need the help of the employees in order to go through this process of change within the organization. Of course, in these cases, let's say I see it as a two-way, let's say lack of a two-way communication in these cases. However, your proactive approach is very much to appreciate. It's not that employees usually do that. Simply they are quiet until they find another much better opportunity and they simply leave. That's why the organizations are there in order to motivate the employees, in order to retain them. Absolutely, when we talk about change, it's not something that employees do want, as you mentioned earlier, because it's mainly related with uncertainty, because you do not know what is expected. Usually employees fear that because of this change, someone will be fired from the company, and that's why they would like to maintain their status quo within the organization. However, changes is needed. And we discussed what kind of factors usually do force us to change. And if the management of the organization, the leadership of the organization is not able to read the inputs that they receive, not only from the external factors, but also within the internal factors within the organization, and then let's say incorporate them within the strategic planning of the organization, they are absolutely going to fail. That's why we do external analysis. We analyze the external environment. We do an internal analysis, and then come up with a strategic planning for the organization in order to tackle these changes that these both external and internal environment imposes to the organization in order to cope with these challenges, and then achieve organizational effectiveness at the end by implementing these goals and objectives that are defined in the strategic planning of the organization in this case.